You know the smog monster from the Godzilla movies? You know, pollution and garbage sort of converges and becomes this thing that is going to destroy Tokyo. Yeah, that's definitely the main formula. But then somewhere also in there are like 3.5 months spent traveling around Indonesia after a decade of learning about Indonesian music and seeking it out, and a lust for krautrock, a lust for post-punk, a lust for the YMCA. The new record especially, we got a lot of YMCA vibrations on the new record. Playing with my brother since I was 10 years old. Weird instruments that show up down the street for $100, like a percussionist wants to sell his vibraphone for $250 because he's moving to Australia. And so, many years ago, I got a vibraphone and it instilled itself in all my writing. The Macha sound. Macha sound has been a process for years and years and years, and in 1996 it ended up getting called Macha. My first record I made in high school was all Moog synthesizer and a drummer. My brother playing drums and I did all the instruments on a Moog, overdubbed them myself. And so the band was basically contained in a synth, and there were already Orientalisms showing up in high school, and then the instruments started showing up. I ended up getting a few more after my Moog, which is all I had, aside from a classical guitar. And the rock thing has always been in my blood, I turned on to playing my mom's records when I was about 3. She, just gave me carte blanche with her collection, and so Hendrix and the Stones and the Beatles and and then soul music. Otis Redding's number one in my heart, and all that, and then getting a couple of records when I first started buying my own, 10 years old. Iggy Pop's The Idiot album, struck a serious blow. I got that for my 11th birthday, and after that, everything else was just dirty. I guess over the years, I've ended up wanting to refine my melodic vocabulary, and getting interested in scales from other cultures, rhythms from other cultures. It's all just fallen into place. I really love African music. You can't hear it in the Macha stuff quite as readily, but Southeast Asia and Africa are vying for my heart, have been for decades, and so I like the sweat and the energy of the YMCA. And so I got a band that that can help the workout regimen of any American health buff. That's what it takes, It's a little 4 on the floor beat and those mallet instruments. It takes a lot more energy to go like that for an hour than a little pick in your hand, So Macha plays a lot of mallet instruments, keep fit, keep trim. Logistics have always played into how I've ended up having to do music. It's always been hard to find people to play with. I had over 10 bands in 10 years before I moved to Athens. I had probably 15 bands, nothing that lasted more than a year and a half. It's been very hard I tend to get with, people who are artists, who view music a little more as a experience thing as opposed to a tradition thing, and so they tend to be divided by their school pursuits or their personal art projects, and it's all, bands have always dissolved in their prime for me. Macha outlasted any band that I had before. Got a record out just after a year and a half together, and that sealed it for another 3 years. And now, in the last couple of years, other things have been pulling the members away. So right now I'm, having a tour on my own on this one. Last Macha show in December of 2001, Wes Martin, who became the fourth, solid member right after the first record came out, he came on board. He's an old friend from Texas. Moved out to Athens. We had the live band secured, and he played with us for 3 years. When he quit, there was a big void that opened up as far as having this reliable anchor instrumentalist for the live shows. So the shows kind of stopped. We had been in a tour van, for years, made 3 records in a year and a half. It was a really busy time when Macha hit, and it, hit the ground running, because the label Jet Set called, and after getting our home recordings, listened to them for 2 days, called up out of the blue. We hadn't even sent them to them. Someone else had sent these home recordings to them. Called us up and said, if you can give us a record in 1 month, we'll get it out 2 months after that. And it was like, I was busy trying to make the record at home on a cassette 8-track, so I had to think, is this a smart move? Out of nowhere, just have to dive in to try and get this for their deadline, yada, 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 and I just decided it was worth it, take the risk. Got the record done, in 2 weeks preparation, and it came out 3 months after that, and everything just went boom, touring began, 2 more records got made, and then, a break was needed, and we ended up, Kai went back to school, Mish and I did another band. I made another record under the name Seaworthy that came out in February 2002, and it ended up just kind of evaporating from view for a while between people's other pursuits. Mish started mastering using a Macintosh with his painting and watercolor work. 'Cause he's a really talented painter. He has always divided his time between drumming and painting. And finally he's moved on, moved up, followed his heart to Michigan, where his girlfriend has been living for a couple of years. So yeah, I've got to do what I've got to do with being able to bring the music to the world. I'll go broke and insane overdubbing a record, for 24 hours straight for a month, and then got to get out on the road too. The music is always improved by live performance, and so that's what we're doing now. This new band is kind of a miraculous thing, that I found. 4 guys who I had known but never played with. Coley, Dennis from Maserati's playing guitar, but I've ended up getting him on the hammer dulcimer as well. He's playing some keyboard. Whitney Travisano. Coley plays in Maserati, if I mentioned that, from Athens. Whitney Travisano from the Mercury program, keyboard vibes player, who's also getting on the hammer dulcimer, and got him on the steel drum for the first time in his life. And Dave LeBleu from Mercury program is on drums. Chris McNeil from the Paper Lions in Athens is on bass. And, it's been insane. Everybody's been learning these songs in like a fever dream for I spent a week or two each of them individually, and then we've spent 2 weeks together, all 5 of us, to prepare for this tour.